Being 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosphus.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Collins.
Here.
Commissioner Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Talentino.
Here.
Commissioner Twardy.
Here.
Okay, we're all here. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you very much. I would ask those with cell phones if they would please put them on vibrate or silence them by turning them off. We'd appreciate it. Let's see. Item B, proclamation and recognitions. We have an introduction of probationary firefighter paramedic Michael Temchek to the Temkek to the commission. City Manager Nebo.
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Oliver, how's that?
Yeah.
Well, that only happened the first time in 4 years. Eh?
I'll defer right away to Chief LeBon's.
I see him walking up there, and I'm thinking, wait for your introduction.
No problem. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This evening, I have the pleasure of introducing you to the very newest addition to the fire department, probationary firefighter paramedic Michael Demkak, who began working actually this morning at 7:55. Michael was born in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which is a suburb of Madison, Wisconsin. After finishing high school, Michael attended the Madison Technical College and became certified as a firefighter paramedic. Michael has attained all of the reciprocal firefighter and paramedic credentials to certify and license him within the state of Michigan. Michael now lives on Hyde Street here in the city and enjoys spending time with his girlfriend, Skylar, doing mechanic work, and running and hiking. At this time, I asked Deputy City Manager Robin Troyer to administer the city's oath of office to Michael. Okay.
I'll have you raise your right hand. I'm just going to read this to you, and at the end, then you can just say I do. I do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of firefighter, paramedic, in and for the city of Sault Ste. Marie, county of Chippewa, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my abilities. I do. Congratulations. I'm going to have
Congratulations. Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Welcome.
Okay. Thanks, guys. At this time, item C, public comment on any scheduled agenda items. Anyone may wish to speak on an agenda item. If you'd like to recognize, if you'd like to just let us know who you are, and if you're interested, we'll let you know when the item comes and comes on board, and you'll be able to speak at that time. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, item number D, the Deputy City Manager.
Under the consent agenda, 1, approval of the City Commission meeting minutes of November 5th, 2018. Item 2, approval of the special City Commission meeting minutes of November 12th, 2018. Item 3, acceptance of the Airport Advisory Board meeting minutes of October 11th. Item 4, acceptance of the Economic Development Corporation meeting minutes of October 9th. Item 5, acceptance of the Tax Increment Authority Unit 3 meeting minutes of September 11th. Item 6 is authorization to purchase property for alley purposes. Item 7 is authorization to submit a winter mission grant application. Item 8 is acceptance of donations for bicycle-oriented improvements. Item 9 is from the Downtown Development Authority, addition of a $10 late fee to the user fee schedule. And item 10 is the approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
Okay, thank you. Is there a commissioner that would like an item further explained? If not, let's go to Commissioner Talentino.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Support.
It's been motion to approve. Is there any questions, or are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosbus?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item E, special orders of business. 1, public hearing of necessity for special assessment sidewalk project SW-03-18.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. On this matter, City Engineer Basista will present to the Commission and community.
Evening, Linda.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. Oh, it's on. At the October 19th meeting, it's been a while, seems like, the City Commission approved scheduling the hearing of necessity for the 2019 sidewalk repairs projects. We actually had started this project identifying sidewalks that would be repaired in 2019 this past summer. Notices were sent out to property owners in areas that we were considering, asking them to clear their sidewalks of grass that's growing up through the sidewalk and so forth, so that we could inspect the sidewalk and determine which ones needed to be repaired. So we gave property owners an opportunity to do that. We settled on 3 locations for sidewalks for 2019. And I'll just show you on the map here. First section is Ann Street between Bingham and Easterday Avenue on the north side of the street. And there's a picture here showing generally condition of the sidewalk there. The next location is Sheridan Drive between Meridian and I think that's Second. It's the intersection where the LSSU drive comes down and meets Sheridan. And again, this is typical condition of the sidewalk that we'll be replacing. Third location is Pine and Leroy Streets. Pine on the east side of the street between Ann and Leroy, and then a section of sidewalk on Leroy in front of a property. So when we do, this is like our 4th or 5th year of regularly scheduling sidewalk repair projects. As you know, the sidewalk special assessment is 50% property owner and 50% paid by the city at large. And so the proposed schedule for this round of sidewalks is tonight. This is for you to hold the hearing of necessity and then pass the resolution ordering the public improvement. We will send out the project to bid, advertise it for bid, and in January we'll come back with bid prices, in which case ask you to schedule the roll hearing. In February, we'll have the roll hearing, approve the special assessment roll, and award the construction contract at that time. Construction would proceed in typically in May, June for construction, and with special assessments, we notify the treasurer's office at the end of the year when projects are complete. They then schedule to send out the bills to the affected property owners in the spring, usually around April 1st, with the first installment or full paid 6 months after the bill. So I put this schedule in here actually not so much for this because we've been doing this for about 5 years now, but for your information. But this is more, it also will come up again at the next item that I'm before you on that also has a special assessment process in place or proposed. So, but this is a typical schedule for public, for special assessments when property owners are responsible for a share or all of the cost, and in this case, 50%. So this I do have to correct. I said that the amount of sidewalk being proposed for this project is around 1,100 lineal feet, but that was an error. This particular project is around 650 lineal feet. Oh, okay. City manager just remind me that the resolution that you're passing tonight has the resolution schedules the roll hearing for January 19th. So
Okay,
that's
so
a
hearing
correction
for
to
January
my
19th. Okay.
schedule here.
Okay.
Thank you.
City manager, you have anything additionally?
Thank you for that presentation, City Engineer. There are two recommended actions in front of the City Commission. The first, to hold a public hearing of necessity for the proposed project, and secondarily, a motion to adopt the resolution ordering public improvements and setting the public hearing to confirm the special assessment roll at the regular City Commission meeting for Monday, January 21st, 2019.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Twardy?
Yeah, just more of a comment. I just want to thank you also for that presentation. We all kind of understand the schedule, but to be able to see it laid out like that on the screen, and that's great for the viewership also. And then also thank you for the pictures. As we, a lot of us get around town and see a lot of the sidewalks, and I know all of those areas, and as we have Lake State students walking around, and I'm really excited about the Ann Street one. That's a much-used sidewalk that I tend to run down. So all great areas that need to be improved upon. Have you heard from any negativity from any of the property owners?
No, in fact, we had a public information meeting scheduled for last week, and no one came.
Okay.
It was snowing, but
Okay.
nobody came.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
I missed the very end of that. What did you say about January 19th?
The holding the public hearing for the setting the roll would be in January, not in February, as I've shown on the schedule in the slide.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Twardy?
I think you have
Oh,
to
I'm
hold it.
sorry. Public hearing first. Thank you, Linda. At this time, we'll hold a public hearing on necessity for the proposed project for the sidewalk improvement, SW-03-18. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to make a comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. City Commissioner Twardy.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution ordering public improvements and setting a public hearing to confirm the special assessment roll at the regular City Commission meeting for Monday, January 21st,
Support.
Been moved, supported.
2019.
Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bosbis.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 2 under special orders of business is public hearing on a resolution to vacate the full width of the alley within Block 15, replat of Washburn subdivision with retention of utility easements. A is the public hearing and B is action on the item.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. On this item and the next three, Community Development Director Freeman will present to the Commission.
Okay. Kelly?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Evening.
So the alley in question in this application is generally located between East 7th Avenue, East 8th Avenue, and then Minneapolis and Kimball Street. You can see the location here on the aerial. This street over here on the far right side of the screen is Seymour, and the bottom of the screen is Marquette, just as a point of reference. Here's a closer view of the alley. So the applicant is requesting the vacation of the entire alley. It's 16 feet wide and unimproved, just a grass surface. There are utilities within the alley, at least Cloverland and AT&T, so there will be a need to retain utility easements for, and to provide for those facilities to remain. None of the properties on the block depend on the alley for access. Additionally, the applicant owns the entire west side of the alley, entire west side of the block too. There are 3 owners on the east side, and none of those have contacted me with objections. I did receive 1 phone call from one of the homeowners on that side in support. Another gentleman attended the Planning Commission meeting and was satisfied with the answers he received there. Additionally, there have been no objections from utility companies provided the utility easements are retained. The Planning Commission discussed the item at their regular meeting on October 25th and made a recommendation to the City Commission that the full width of the alley within Block 15, replat of Washburn subdivision, be vacated with the retention of utility easements. So before the City Commission tonight is a public hearing and then action on the item to follow. And that concludes my presentation.
City Manager, do you have anything additional?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. City Commission, any questions at this point? Doesn't matter. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. So at this time, we will hold a public hearing to approve the, or public hearing on the vacation of the full width of the alley within Block 15, replat of Washburn subdivision with retention of utility easements. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. City Commission. Let's go to Commissioner Collins.
Make a motion to approve the requested vacation of the full width of the alley, Block 15, replat of Washburn subdivision with the retention of the utility easements. Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 3 under special orders of business, a second reading of an ordinance to amend section 10-1.2004 of the city's zoning ordinance and to add review standards for dimensional variances. A is public comment and B is action on the item.
Okay, thank you. And City Manager, we're going right to Kelly, right?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So this was a city-initiated action, actually at the behest of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Presently, our zoning ordinance provides that a dimensional variance may be granted upon the finding of the Zoning Board of Appeals that there is an undue hardship caused by the exceptional narrowness, shallowness, shape, or area of a property, topographical conditions, or other extraordinary or exceptional circumstances that the Zoning Board identifies. It really doesn't provide any guidance to the zoning board members beyond that. And earlier this year, one of the members actually requested kind of like a checklist or a cheat sheet to kind of help make things easier to go through. However, anything like that would need to be baked into the ordinance because that's the law that you got to follow. So I offered an option to kind of work through the creation of some standards that we can put right into the ordinance to help make that job easier for them in reviewing and making decisions on those cases. So we looked at a number of our peer communities as well as some others elsewhere in Michigan. Both Escanaba and Traverse City actually use identical standards for their zoning board of appeals to review variance cases, and we're actually proposing to put 8 standards in an ordinance. I'm not going to read them verbatim, but I'll just kind of walk through what they're designed to do. First one is basically that the spirit of the zoning ordinance is observed. Second would be that the issues are unique to the property, not so general to the neighborhood, and that it's only applying to the property that is controlled by the applicant. The third one, C, is that it's necessary for the preservation of a substantial property right. Things like if you have a piece of property that you can't build a house on, but there's other houses in the neighborhood, that's something that they can look at there. Clear showing of unnecessary hardship as to the use of the property. The hardship is not solely economic, that there's an actual impracticality there that extends beyond the checkbook. The applicant is not at fault for the hardship, that they can't be created through their own actions. For instance, if the house was built so large on a piece of property that they couldn't fit their garage on it the way they wanted to, that's a good example of an applicant-caused hardship. That the requested variance is the minimum necessary to make whatever it is they're trying to work. And lastly is that the need for the variance is immediate and not anticipating future circumstances like 5 years from now I might need to do this. It has to be present as the application is applied for. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at their September 27th meeting, and following no public comment, recommended unanimously that the amendment be approved. Before the City Commission tonight is an opportunity for additional public comment, followed by action on the item. And that concludes my presentation.
City Manager, anything further?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Any commissioners? No questions of Kelly? Thank you. So at this time, we'll hold a public comment on a ordinance to amend section 10-1.2004 of the city zoning ordinance to add review standards for dimensional variances. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to make a comment at this time? Okay, we'll close the public comment. City Commissioner, let's go to Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that we adopt the included ordinance to amend section 10-1.2004 of the city zoning ordinance to add review standards for the dimensional variances.
Support. Then move supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuarty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 4 under special orders of business is second reading of an ordinance to amend section 10-1.1800 subsection 7 of the city zoning ordinance to provide for the construction of uncovered decks and porches within the required front yard. A is public comment and B is action on the item.
Okay, you want to read Kelly? You're back.
Okay, this is another city-initiated one. Recently, we've seen an uptick in variances requested to construct uncovered decks and porches within people's front yards. We saw 4 this year and 5 last year. And generally, when you start to see the same patterns repeating, that's a sign that your zoning ordinance needs some work to address that issue. So that's what this language amendment is designed to do. Back in 2013, we did try to loosen things up a little bit to allow the construction of a 5x5 landing at a front entry. Prior to that, it was just stairs you were allowed to have. We had a zoning board meeting back then, and people were concerned that, especially the elderly, if you were to approach your front door, you'd have to back out of the way of your storm door as you opened it, so the 5x5 landing would provide a little bit of extra safety to make it easier to get in and out of a home. But one thing it doesn't provide is seating space. It's just simply an area to move about. So we are coming back now to loosen things up a little bit more, seeing as the change we made in 2013 isn't addressing the issue quite the way that we had hoped that it would. So what we're proposing is language that would allow the encroachment of up to 6 feet from the front of the dwelling into the front yard. However, there is a requirement that at least a 3-foot front setback has to be maintained off the property line. The width can be no more than 20 feet, or if the width of the dwelling unit is less than 20 feet, it would be whatever that is. So if you have a 16-foot wide house, you can put a 16-foot wide deck on it. It has to be less than or equal to the height of the finished floor of the dwelling, and then not covered or enclosed except for a 5-foot wide, 3-foot deep canopy that you could construct over the front door to provide a little bit of weather shelter as you're fumbling for your keys to get into the house. Additionally, where the nature of the house provides for 2 different sections of deck, you can have a 3-foot walkway to connect them to. This is just kind of a visual example of that, because a picture is always better than trying to explain something like that. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing at their September 27th meeting. No public comment was offered at that time, and they recommended unanimously that the amendment be approved. So before the City Commission tonight is would be solicit public comment and then take action on the item.
Okay, thank you. City Manager, anything?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. At this time, we'll have a public comment of the ordinance to amend section 10.1 or 10-1.1800 subsection 7 of the city's zoning ordinance to provide for the construction of uncovered decks and porches within a required front yard. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment. City Commission, let's go to Commissioner Baker.
Make a motion to approve included ordinance to amend section 10-1.1800 subsection 7 of the city's zoning ordinance to provide for the construction of uncovered decks and porches with the required front yard.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy,
Yes.
Mayor Bosmus,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 5 under special orders of business is second reading of an ordinance to amend section 10-1.03 of the city's zoning ordinance to permit the zoning board of appeals to adjust the boundaries of a zoning district where a parcel is split zoned. A is public comment and B is action on the item.
Okay, thank you. Kelly.
All right, last but not least, for me anyway. So, I know it. I should have brought my tent with me. So this item we discussed at the last City Commission meeting. This is the amendment that would allow split zonings to be heard by the Zoning Board of Appeals rather than taking them through as rezonings. The language is underlined at the very bottom of the slide, as you can see here, just a single sentence. It states where the Zoning Board of Appeals finds that an error, omission, or similar unlikely unintended action has resulted in a district boundary dividing a single lot of ownership at the time of adoption of this ordinance, the board may adjust the boundary of said district. The Zoning Board of Appeals already has the authority to interpret the zoning map if there's any questions or things that are unclear about it, so this seems like a natural extension of that authority that they already have. Like the last three, the Planning Commission held a public hearing at their September 27th meeting. No public comment was offered, and they recommended unanimously that the amendment be approved. Before the Commission tonight is soliciting public comment and then action on the item. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. City Manager, anything?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any questions of Kelly? Okay, at this time, we'll hold a public comment situation for an ordinance to amend section 10-1.03 of the city's zoning ordinance to permit the Zoning Board of Appeals to adjust the boundary of a zoning district where a parcel is split zoned. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will close that public comment time and go to the City Commission. Let's see, let's go to Commissioner Gary.
Motion to approve the included ordinance to amend section 10-1.03 of the city's zoning ordinance to permit the Zoning Board of Appeals to adjust the boundary of a zoning district where a parcel is split zoned.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy,
Yes.
Mayor Bosmus,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 6 under special orders of business is proposed Hyde Street sanitary sewer extension.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Would welcome City Engineer Basista back to the podium.
Okay. Linda?
Good evening again. So at the last City Commission meeting, you approved a resolution ordering the administration to prepare reports for the potential for a Hyde Street sewer extension. So in your report So you have the location map, the project cost estimate, a list of the benefiting property owners, and recommended determination for assessing the benefiting property owners, and resolution scheduling the public hearing of necessity. That would be the next step. And I just have some slides to present tonight. First of all, it's in the city's code of ordinances on the water supply and sewage disposal that all homes must be, properties, buildings must be connected to either a public sewer or have appropriate sanitary system, which in this case, where there's not sewer, it's a Chippewa County Health Department approved, permitted septic system. And when a public sewer becomes available, then by ordinance, the property owners who have such facilities are required to connect to the sanitary sewer. In the city here, though, we have two, currently on Hyde Street, where the subject of this is, two properties that are connected to the city's sewer via what was approved by a private use agreement. These are common when someone builds on a road that's not highly built yet, and when there's only one property looking to construct, if they can access a sewer or water from a long lead, that they will do it then. In this case, Hyde Street, this is a project area. It's between West 6th Avenue and West 8th Avenue. We currently have sewer on West 6th, so that's up here at the top of the picture. And the two properties currently connected to the West 6th Avenue sewer via the private use agreement is a single-family residential home at 1702 Hyde, and then Superior Health Support Systems built assisted living support home, and they also connected to the sewer on West 6th Avenue. City's policy is that up to 2 connections to a public main can be done before, if there's a third request or need, that's what triggers a public sewer to be constructed. Now, on the rest of the road, there is a vacant parcel here on the just to the south of West 6th Avenue. Superior Health Systems has indicated that they plan to build a training building facility in the location where there's currently a garage on their property, and that's planned to be built in the next 1 to 2 years. South of the existing single-family home at 1702 Hyde is another vacant lot. And then across from that, again, Superior Health Support Systems does plan in 3 to 5 years to build another assisted specialty home for residents. Then what really is triggering this now is Larry Bittner owns 2 homes up on the hill. His address is, for those properties is West 8th Avenue, but he has inadequate septic systems for the houses as they exist previously, and then he is adding on to the one at 1599 West 8th Avenue, and he really doesn't have adequate space for a larger septic field. So he is the one with the most immediate need besides Superior Health Support Systems, who plans to construct in 1 to 2 years. So as part of the process, we did a engineer's estimate for the project, and in looking at our 6-year capital improvement plan, I noted that we did have a request a few years ago for a drainage improvement on Hyde Street, and if you ever drive down Hyde, that area in the springtime, all that water coming off of the hill, it does tend to get pretty bad at the bottom of the hill at 8th. So there is a need for a grade lift on that street, and it's in our capital improvement plan, not scheduled, but as indicated as a need. So if we were to proceed with a sewer project on this block of Hyde, I also recommend that at the same time we do complete a grade lift and improve the ditching there to improve the drainage. So as part of the cost estimate, I considered it an entire project to do the grade lift and the sewer. And the far right column, you see that what is included in what would be included in the sewer assessment is indicated based on whether the pay item as part of the contract would be attributable to the sewer 100% or 50% because it's including the grade lift, or 100% the grade lift. So the total project cost estimate currently is $157,700, and the sewer included sewer portion is $100,000. So the next step is to determine the benefits of the adjoining property owners. And in this case, because we have some vacant lots and we have the properties that are already connected to the sewer, I looked at the properties adjoining Hyde Street and indicated where there's a potential for building or it's already built. And so the residential parcels on the west side of the street, those are vacant parcels, but they have buildable lots. And so those lots could be split. For example, the one to the north west, this parcel that is the larger parcel has 4 lots. This potentially could get split into 2 lots, or it could be built as a single family with 4 lots. But regardless, it has lots, buildable lots that front Hyde Street. West 7th here has not been vacated, so potentially maybe it could be built and expanded if, say, this individual were to split his properties. But nevertheless, his parcel would be attributed one benefit for the sewer running in front of the property. Likewise, the property in the middle has already been built. They're one benefit, one connection. And to the south of that, another vacant lot, again, has a buildable lots and assessed one. For Superior Health Systems, their property where their main building is currently is under the tax ID one entire parcel. However, they have buildable lots, and so the lot that is proposed for the training building, the 2 lots, is considered one benefit. Then the parcel, Superior Health Systems also owns the entire block 8. So they've already built the one facility on the north half of block 8, and they still have what would be considered buildable lot on the south side. So Superior Health Systems has 3 potential benefits. And then Larry Bittner's properties, he's not what we would say is in the assessment district by description as far as buildable lots fronting Hyde Street, because his properties don't technically front Hyde Street. So he would be in the special assessment by contract. And so in agreeing to participate in the special assessment as an equal party in the special assessment, but his would have to be by contract. So there's eight total benefits divided by dividing into the total $100,000 project cost results in $12,500 per benefit or connection. So the proposed schedule would be tonight. I'm asking that you have a resolution before you, that this resolution would be scheduling the hearing of necessity. The hearing of necessity would be scheduled for your December 3rd City Commission meeting. Tomorrow, we would begin by sending out the notices of the public hearing to the benefiting property owners. And on December 3rd, you would hold the public hearing of necessity. You'd pass, if you decide to continue, you'd pass a resolution ordering the public improvement, which would also include setting the number of years for installment payments. And our typical special assessment is 10 years. That's what our CSO projects have been. That's what our sidewalk installment payments are. But a project of this size, they can be spread out to a longer special assessment. You don't want longer installments. You want to set the installments so that it's at least not more than the life of the public improvement. And in this case, though, I would recommend 20 years for the number of installments. And then, again, if you agree to approve the project or approve the public improvement, then I'd be asking you to approve the budget, because we don't currently have a budget established for a grade lift on Hyde Street. So you'd be setting the budget for Hyde Street grade lift and the sewer. So on December 4th, if you, again, agree to proceed, then we would complete the design and get the project ready for public bidding. And in March, anticipate in March, we'd come back to present the as-bid costs and what that would tell you what the individual benefiting properties each would pay based on 100% special assessment of the sewer. And at that meeting also, that's what we'll be asking you to schedule the roll hearing. And we would hold that in April. And again, just like the sidewalk special assessment, it would hold the public hearing, the roll public hearing, which sets the amount of the assessment, and we'd award the construction contract. Construction would proceed hopefully in May and be completed in July. And again, as part of the special assessment process, the schedule would be for us to, when the project is complete in the fall and winter, notify the treasurer's office to bill the special assessments. The treasurer's office would send out the bills to the property owners on or around April 1st. They would, property owners would have until October 1st to make their first installment payment or the full amount. If they once the first installment is without any interest, and then if they decided to go with installments, then the next bill the following year would begin interest accrual. So that's all I have before you. So tonight, your action would be to set the public hearing of necessity. I have been in contact with all of the property owners so that they are aware of it, aware of the project, whether they agree with it, or they know when we were proposing for the public hearing to be held, and so far I've gotten no return calls as far as questions being asked and so forth. So,
City Manager, anything additional?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I guess just a couple of questions, and have, and maybe other commissioners have questions also, but certainly 12.5 is a little more than we normally would assess during the CSO improvements that we had, I think, for many of the property owners, because they range from 2,000 to 5,000, maybe, I guess. I like the idea of the 20 years, but, and it's no question it's a good improvement on that area, because the water coming off that hill down, there was some ditching problems that we looked at before, and not many families or not many homeowners or property owners to pay for that large improvement. That's why it ends up at 12.5 each. But I'd like to hear from the owners of those properties when we get to the public hearing. Where would the money come from, since it's not in the budget? Is that something that we would deal with in budget time going forward as we set the next budget year, City Manager?
Thank you for that question, Mayor. This is something that City Administration would determine by the next meeting, that establishing the budget would be required, so we would identify the
source,
most proper funding source.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Twardy.
Yeah, well, again, just thank you for the presentation. I like the timeline that you laid out, just kind of makes it clear so that there's not a lot of questions. But I also would like to hear from the property owners. I'm questioning, though, that like a couple of those vacant lots, maybe the reason that they've been sitting vacant for all this time is because it's really not very usable land, and maybe it doesn't bring very much market value. Because I know that when we've looked at different lots before, if there isn't electricity and there's no water coming to it, what are you going to do with it? So the fact that there will be sanitary sewer, maybe it just will make it more marketable, and maybe that's an option that, you know, we might want to make sure that we're reminding the property owners of that. And I know that Tracy Holt across on the west side of that street they're really hoping to do some improvements to our community. So I would like to see the project go through, but I do want to hear from the property owners, because 12.5 is pretty high. So, but.
Oh, well, I would just say that in response to how much we've been assessing on the CSO projects, the special assessment for the CSO projects actually was just for the road improvements. Right. So anyone with sewer or water currently, the rates that they've been paying include the replacement, you know, the capital to replace the system. When a utility is being expanded to serve for the first time, that's when it's 100% to the property owner. So it is an improvement that benefits the area completely. And also, if Superior Health Systems wants to build anything else, they will need a sewer. So, and if at that time, say if we don't proceed with building a sewer now, and Superior Health Systems wants to build another house and whatnot, and we extend the sewer, at that point there would only be 6 properties sharing the cost of the same sewer. Because right now, Larry Bittner is at the end, and we would not assess him because he's not technically in the special assessment district. So he's volunteering to be in a special assessment district currently. So if we take the same cost in 3 to 5 years and divide it by only 6 properties, each one is then paying that much more.
One more question.
Sure, Commissioner Twardy.
Thank you. So when we were looking at the vacant lots that were coming down Hyde Street, some of those other vacant lots that are off on the adjoining streets to that, what's happening on that land? Is that all vacant land? Could that eventually at some point, could those lots be also sold and then tied into? Well,
currently, you just recently vacated, I think this is 13th Avenue, right, Kelly? Yeah. And these properties are owned by people who on West 6th Avenue. That's not to say that they wouldn't ever sell, and then the sewer might pick up from Hyde Street and extend down 7th. So they're that much closer to sewer and potential development and infill in that area. Down at the end on 8th Avenue, at this point, this belongs to, it was originally part of Metrish's, but they've recently sold a house. That house is way up on the hill, but that's a piece of property that could potentially get split. It's not a plat, so it's not lots. It's a meets and bounds property, so it could potentially be split if it meets the property land split rules. And I did reach out to Metrish's regarding their parcel here that they share the driveway with for Bittner's property. Their address is Hyde, but their house is up on the hill. And I said, you know, I'm not planning to include you on this special assessment, you know, boundary, just because it's so impractical for you, and you don't need sewer. But I just thought I would check with you to see if for some reason your septic system is failing or if you're having any problems. He said thank you for contacting him, but his septic system was fine and he didn't anticipate having any needs. But again, he's way up on the hill, as is Larry Bittner. But again, Larry Bittner really doesn't have a choice as far as his septic systems go.
And I believe also that if you're going to build a new system, a septic system, you're looking at between 8 and above, you know, for...
In this area, I think you're looking at engineered systems, you're looking at 15 to 20,000.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
For a septic system. You know,
Yes.
So, good point. Okay. No? Okay. Anyone else? City Manager.
Thank you for that presentation, City Engineer.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Okay. So at this point, we need a motion. Let's go to, would like to, Commissioner Tuardi?
Make a motion to pass the attached first resolution for the public improvements for the Hyde Street Sewer Extension Project, scheduling a public hearing of necessity to take place at the December 3rd, 2018 City Commission meeting.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Tuardi?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item F, Communications. 1, from the Ordinance Evaluation Committee, adoption of an ordinance enacting the repeal of various provisions of the Code of Ordinances.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. As commissioners are aware, the City Commission took action at its February 12th goal-setting session to support the reestablishment of the goal of creating a committee that includes members of the business community and community partners to reevaluate every city ordinance that is at least 50 years old. As a result of the recent work of the committee, a comprehensive review of Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, 18, 23.5, and Chapter 26 of the city's codified ordinances has been completed. Proposed changes to these ordinances would include the removal of Section 2.1 regarding residence requirements for city employees, as this section is preempted by state statute. The removal of Section 2.50 and Section 2.51 regarding the administration of a safety council, as this can be handled administratively. The removal of Section 2.80, 2.81, and 2.82 pertaining to the Community Services Board, and Provision B of Section 2.82, as these duties are handled administratively. The removal of Section 2.89 through Section 2.95 regarding the structure and administration of an Industrial and Economic Development Commission, as the establishment of the Sault Ste. Marie Economic Development Corporation has replaced the need for this provision. The removal of Section 2.161 through Section 2.166 regarding the structure of a commission for administration of gift funds, as the structure is not utilized by the city currently, and any such gifts can be administered at the direction of the City Commission. The removal of Chapter 4 regarding air pollution prevention and control in its entirety, as the City Attorney has determined these provisions have been preempted by state and federal statute. The removal of Section 18.6 regarding interference with radio and television reception, as these provisions are preempted by regulations from the Federal Communications Commission. The removal of Section 18.27 through Section 18.43 pertaining to a moratorium on wind-powered electricity generating devices and a moratorium on marijuana facilities, as this has been addressed by the city otherwise. The removal of Article 2 of Chapter 23.5 pertaining to telecommunications, as these provisions have been preempted by state and federal statute, with the retainment of the balance of the chapter, and the removal of the entirety of Chapter 26, Vehicles for Hire, as the associated provisions are no longer applicable, with the balance of all other chapter provisions being retained. In order to ensure the opportunity for public input, the City Commission took action during its September 17th meeting to release the proposed changes for a 30-day period of time for public comment. No public comments were received. Accordingly, an ordinance drafted by City Attorney Canello to enact these changes has been included for consideration by the City Commission. This ordinance received a first reading during the November 5th meeting and can now be adopted by the City Commission. Accordingly, it would be my recommendation that the City Commission adopt the included ordinance as presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the city attorney would also like to make a comment.
I think the city manager neglected in his narrative to mention that we're also recommending the deletion of sections 319 and 320 from Chapter 3, Article 2, dealing with the distribution of handbills, as they are no longer constitutional.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Any questions of the city manager or city attorney? Let's go to Commissioner Talentino.
Sure, I'll make a motion to adopt the included ordinances as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Bospas,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuarty.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 2 under communications is from Commissioner Baker, discussion on recreational marijuana.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, we have 2 items of marijuana discussion, one from Commissioner Baker, one from Commissioner Miller. And what I'd like to do before that, and in talking with Commissioner Baker, there was no problem with letting the city manager just give a brief overview of the marijuana law as it was passed this past November the 6th. Okay. So, city manager. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Miller?
I have a question.
Yes.
If it pleases the commission, you can just take my agenda item off there, because we're just gonna be talking about the same thing, so. It's discussion of the same thing, so, I mean, in the interest of keeping it shorter.
It won't take long for your item, maybe, you know, I mean, because if it's the same thing, you can.
Okay, I was just,
But I hate to take it off if it's on there,
that's
so.
just fine. I was just
Okay.
gonna say,
Thank
if you
you.
wanted to save
Okay.
some time.
Okay, appreciate it. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As the commission is aware, on November 6th, Proposal 1 was approved by the voters of the state of Michigan, resulting in the Michigan Regulation of Taxation of Marijuana Act. Just to walk through a few of the provisions of the act, the stated purpose of the act in Section 2 is to make marijuana legal under state and local law for adults 21 years of age or older, to make industrial hemp legal under state and local law, and to control the commercial production and distribution of marijuana under a system that licenses, regulates, and taxes the businesses involved. Section 4 states that the act does not authorize the operating, navigating, or being in physical control of any motor vehicle, aircraft, snowmobile, ORV, or motorboat while under the influence of marijuana, and further does not authorize any person under the age of 21 to possess, consume, purchase, or otherwise obtain, cultivate, process, transport, or sell marijuana. Also does not authorize the cultivating of marijuana plants if the plants are visible from a public place without the use of binoculars, aircraft, or other optical aids, or possessing marijuana accessories, or possessing or consuming marijuana on the grounds of a public or private school, also not authorized. The act does not require an employer to permit or accommodate conduct otherwise allowed by the act in any workplace or on the employer's property, and does not prohibit an employer from disciplining an employee for a violation of a workplace drug policy or for working while under the influence of marijuana. Most germane to this discussion, Section 6.1 states that except as provided in Section 4, a municipality may completely prohibit or limit the number of marijuana establishments within its boundaries. Individuals may petition to initiate an ordinance to provide for the number of marijuana establishments allowed within a municipality or to completely prohibit marijuana establishments within a municipality. And such ordinance shall be submitted to the electors of the municipality at the next regular election when a petition is signed by qualified electors in the municipality greater than 5% the votes cast for governor. In other words, the city may adopt an ordinance to prohibit the presence of marijuana establishments, although it would be subject to repeal or being overturned by electors. The municipality may adopt other ordinances that are not unreasonably impractical and do not conflict with this act. And municipalities may also establish reasonable restrictions on public signs related to marijuana establishments, although that provision is subject to recent Supreme Court rulings. May regulate the time, place, and manner of operation of marijuana establishments, of the production, manufacture, sale, or display of marijuana accessories, and designate ordinance violation provisions. If there's no action taken to adopt an ordinance prohibiting establishments, in that case, after 1 year of time approximately passes, then that would be permitted within the city, subject to certain actions taken by LARA and the state. A municipality may also charge an annual fee of not more than $5,000 to defray the application, administrative, and enforcement costs associated with the operation of the marijuana establishment within the community. Just a note of clarity that the Act provides municipalities with the ability to prohibit establishments. However, under the Act, individuals are still able to possess marijuana in accordance with the provisions of the Act. Section 9 of the Act states that the department, also known as LARA, shall begin accepting applications for marijuana establishments within 12 months after the effective date of this Act. The department is supposed to promulgate rules within 1 year. However, if there is no action by the state, this would fall to locals. And if there are a certain number or limitation on the number of establishments, then local municipalities would be tasked with establishing a system through which establishments could be chosen. Section 14 of the Act indicates that funds for the initial activities of the department would be appropriated from the general fund and replenished from the Act. $20 million would also be directed for certain clinical trials and research, but after those two activities are funded, 15% of unexpended balances from the revenues from the Act would go toward municipalities in which a marijuana retail store or marijuana microbusiness is located, allocated in proportion to the number of marijuana retail stores and microbusinesses. 15% would go to the counties, 35% to the school aid fund for K through 12, and 35% being directed to the Michigan Transportation Fund to be used for the repair and maintenance of roads and bridges. Just a little bit of further information from the Michigan Association of Municipal Attorneys. As indicated elsewhere, this law does take effect 10 days after the official declaration of the vote, which currently is anticipated to occur on December 6th or slightly thereafter. Given the relatively short period of time to adjust to the change in the legal status, there has been a number of publications put forward to law enforcement officers, the law enforcement community, municipal attorneys, and others to ensure that the city and other municipalities are prepared for the transition. As for the actual licensure of businesses authorized to engage in activities, as stated, LARA anticipates that they would begin to issue licenses no later than a year after the effective date of the law, or a year after this coming December. It is an open question whether this deadline can be met for the promulgation of rules by LARA, and if it can't, then the burden, as mentioned, of licensing would fall to local municipalities, because the Act specifically provides that if LARA does not timely promulgate rules or accept or process applications, then an applicant may seek licensure directly from the municipality where the business would be located. Under that scenario, the city would have 90 days after the receipt of an application to issue a license or deny licensures. The grounds for denial of a license are limited to an applicant not being in compliance with an ordinance whose provisions are not unreasonably impractical. In other words, a minefield for litigation. Under Section 5 of the Act, persons 21 years of age and older are specifically permitted to possess, use, consume, purchase, transport, or process 2.5 ounces or less of marijuana to be stored within a person's residence and not more than 10 ounces, and for one's personal use, cultivate up to 12 plants at one time. The possession limits under the Act would be the most generous in the nation. In regards to the actions of what municipalities can do, as commissioners are aware, the Facilities Licensing Act, which pertains to medicinal marijuana facilities, does require that municipalities opt in, but under the Act, a municipality must opt out. Further, the Act does not prohibit, as mentioned previously, an employer from disciplining an employee for a violation of a workplace drug policy, and in regards to housing, the Act permits a lesser of property to prohibit or otherwise regulate the consumption, cultivation, distribution, processing, sale, or display of marijuana and accessories on leased properties, except that a lease agreement may not prohibit a tenant from lawfully possessing and consuming marijuana by means other than smoking. That contains the balance of my report, although the city attorney may wish to weigh in further as well.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney, you have any comments?
Well, we all went to the seminar that was put on in this room by the Michigan Municipal League. So many of the things that the city manager mentioned, we have heard before. In your package, under the item 3 from Commissioner Miller, the city manager has placed my ordinance that I drafted back in October in anticipation of the passage of the legalization of marijuana ballot initiative. And if you click on that ordinance, it'll open in a tab, interestingly enough, labeled grass ordinance. I don't know how that happened, but my name for the ordinance was City Ordinance Prohibiting Marijuana Sales, so I don't know why Board Docs named it the way it did, but yeah.
Long grass.
Yeah, anyway. So if you look at the ordinance, it's designed to comply with the new law for the city to opt out of marijuana businesses. And it's some city attorneys, which is why I drafted it October 2nd, some city attorneys recommended this be passed prior to the election. Others are saying it only needs to be passed prior to Lara adopting regulations. Being conservative, I would recommend that if you want to prohibit marijuana businesses, that you not dilly-dally, that you introduce this ordinance for first reading tonight. And then you'll be able to, at the first meeting in November, give it its final, I'm sorry, December, give it its final reading and adoption. It would add a new section to the city code in chapter 9, section 9-129, pursuant to the statute, a prohibition on marijuana establishments within the boundaries of the city of Sault Ste. Marie. If you decide not to opt out of the statute, meaning you are deciding to allow marijuana establishments, I don't know if you can count on Lara getting done in a year. They weren't able to do it with medical marijuana, although maybe they've got enough experience now they can do it for non-medical marijuana. You probably are going to want to pass some type of an ordinance, which has not been drafted yet by any of our leagues or associations, regulating to the extent believed possible the marijuana businesses when they arrive. So, but if you're going to ban it, ban it. You can always reverse that later. But if you don't ban it, it's going to creep up on you. and you're not going to be in a position to adequately respond to it in your own opinion.
Okay, let's go to Commissioner Baker.
I want to ask about the banning, because
Well,
you said that it got.
we're gonna have that discussion. I don't wanna get too much into that, because we're gonna be talking about that under Commissioner Miller's, possibly, right. So why don't we just hold that and let Commissioner Baker do her thing? Okay, you'll have a chance. So let's go to Commissioner Baker.
Okay, thank you. So with the November election, marijuana recreational will become legal by December 6th in the state. And with that, I know there's been lots of talk and concern about the sale of commercial use for marijuana in our city. And I, for one, would like us to really take a long look at it and be smart about it. I don't want us as a commission to rush to judgment. I think that there's a stigma that's been associated with marijuana for a number of years that over time has slowly lifted between the medical benefits of it and just all around general feeling from the public. We know from Chippewa County that the voters did vote for it. So for us to say that we're not going to allow it after the voters spoke, I think that would be very hard for me to do, as well as us determining what business comes in and comes out or comes into our community, whether it's an auto shop, a pizza place, a pot shop, another bar. I don't think that that's our avenue to determine that. I also think that instead of, I would like us to not think so short term and think long term. And yes, with anything new and challenging coming forward, there's going to be issues, there's going to be hiccups, but the state's going to work that out, and we as a city could work that out as well. As you know, you kind of learn as you go. But to dismiss it when it's especially legal right across the border now, then it's going to be legal right outside of city limits. It just doesn't make much sense to me to opt out of it and lose out on the potential revenue. And I know with the MML presentation that they did say the revenue sharing and whatnot, it would be little to minimal. But again, big picture, jobs. If we had a marijuana company like the Canna Development Company that came into Burton, that's going to create over 100 jobs. And then if down the road we talk about maybe a city income tax with the Locks project coming in and things like that, we could capture tax revenue from that. Not to mention the empty buildings all throughout town, and not just downtown. And if we as a commission go through the policy and the procedures and set the right zoning, maybe it doesn't have to be downtown. Maybe that's not where we want it. Maybe we want it right on the outskirts of 3 Mile. I just think to totally ban it within city limits would be premature and really detrimental to the potential revenue that this industry is going to have, not only on Michigan, but overall, eventually. I truly believe that the federal government will make it legal. I think that one of the main reasons you haven't seen it legal is because of the pharmaceutical companies. I think the pharmaceutical companies are eventually going to develop a pill, and once that happens, it'll all be, you know, like alcohol and regulated. I believe that the legalization of marijuana will eliminate the drug dealer in a number of fashions. You know, people will say, you know, marijuana is a gateway drug. I would argue that your gateway drug is your drug dealer. If you had a 21-year-old who wanted to smoke a marijuana cigarette before a movie, and instead of going into a regulated, monitored facility that, you know, you're getting what you're walking in for marijuana and you're walking out with marijuana. You're not walking out with anything else. Whereas if you went to a drug dealer for that joint, then that guy could offer you, hey, I know you want this, but here, try this opiate or any other drug down the sun. So I would argue that this is being more responsible in regulating it and monitoring it and making sure that those people that want that product are getting it in a safe environment. Not to mention Lake State's potential with developing programs between biochemistry, business. Northern Michigan University started their first program. They have over 200 kids on their waiting list. I mean, Lake State, with where they're at, I have a hard time believing wouldn't jump all over this, because especially with the Canadians making it legal as well. With Lake State, if they choose to go down this route, they would be attracting, again, more students and higher enrollment as well. Not to mention, if we were to get a big grow up within the city limits, the water usage, electric usage, we had to raise water rates because our usage was low. We're talking tens of thousands of gallons used in one grow up, depending on how many plants they use. I also believe, you know, a lot of the discussion with the MML, and I went to both presentations from MML, one in Mount Pleasant and one here, and they were both the same exact slideshow, but two different presenters, and it was very different experience for me anyway. But with that, between the electric bills, the water bills, the opportunity for job growth, tourism, marijuana, the industry itself has become booming, and the potential that we have here as a city, and it might not even happen, it may happen if somebody even wants to come in, but to dismiss it without caution, I feel would be a detriment. And then with MML, I know you're going to have 2.5 ounces legal. Everybody can grow it, and everybody's going to be growing lots of pot, and you can double up whether you're a medical in this. They talked about stacking it. I have a hard time believing that anybody is going to take the time to grow unless they're really serious. It's super expensive between your water bill, your electric bill, all those things, the time consuming, the knowledge that you have to have. Your average citizen is not going to grow 12 plants in their house if they just want to partake like they would a beer at the end of their shift, so forth. I also think that the myth of, you know, places that either dispense it, grow it, or whatnot would have big windows and it would be displayed throughout. Most of these facilities are warehouse-like facilities that have little to no windows, mostly for security, but also, you know, with proper ordinances regarding signage and things like that, it doesn't have to be advertised. People that are looking for it will seek it out and will find it, whether it's on the internet or wherever, and get the direction. So if we're smart about it, it can be very low-key. It doesn't have to be right in your face. We don't have to market the Sioux as like a marijuana destination. We can give entrepreneurs the opportunity to do business here in our community and create jobs. And with the tax revenue that you can gain between the state and possibly a city income tax down the road, you can direct that towards our police and ambulance and all of that for education, rehabilitation. And when we talk about addicts and opiates, there's tons of studies that have been done that marijuana does help with the opiate addiction. And with that tax revenue, you could also use that for education, mental health, and coping mechanisms. I truly believe that we would not be doing, with the situation that we're in between pensions and all of that, we need to be able to capture on any and all revenue that we can as a city. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to be responsible, be smart, put policy, procedures, zoning in place. Again, if we don't want it downtown, okay, fine. But let's not rule it out. The potential, again, in the first few years, it might be bumpy, maybe. But at the same time, if we start now and we work along with the state, we're going to be better off down the road versus opting out and then opting in later. So I think we need to really kind of look forward at the potential for business, Lake State, and being responsible. It's To me, it's no different than a liquor license, a bar, again, an auto shop. I don't see how we, and especially the voters voted for it. Chippewa County voted for it, the state of Michigan voted for it. I think you'll see more states down the road, and again, eventually going legal federally. So I think we as a city should be smart and make plans accordingly.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Any questions of Commissioner Baker? Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, I've got a few questions, actually. Before I get started, to people who smoke marijuana, don't send me a bunch of emails. I'm not anti-marijuana. But this is yours. You give us that tonight. There's so many things on here that I don't think are correct. There's so many things that I think are wrong. And first and foremost, what was passed the other day was recreational marijuana, not commercial marijuana in your city. It was recreational marijuana. There's no polling results to tell you what people think about commercial inside their city. They're allowed to have 2.5 ounces on them, 10 ounces in their house per person, and 12 plants. That's a lot of marijuana. We don't need any more. We don't need any facilities processing marijuana inside we're a cute, quaint little town. You said something here about tourism. It's not going to increase tourism. People don't come here in the summertime to smoke marijuana. They bring their kids to see the locks and do other things. The stuff that you put on here is misleading, and I respectfully disagree with you. And when we're all done, then
Commissioner Collins.
So the question I had earlier, when Steve said that if we voted to not allow the distribution, I guess, of marijuana in the city, the city manager had said prior to that if we pass that ordinance, it still has to go back to, or how do the citizens get involved to where they have a vote or they can bring a referendum? Is that how it works?
Let's let the city attorney answer that. He's got the mic on.
As with every ordinance we pass, it's subject to the voters petitioning to modify it. There's nothing different here. So any marijuana ordinance you pass is, like any other ordinance, subject to the populace putting a modification of it or termination of it on the ballot. It's a little confusing the way it's mentioned in the marijuana statute, but it's clear that it's no more than what we already have with every ordinance. You've passed several ordinances tonight, all of which the voters could decide to put on the ballot. This is no different.
But the way that I understood it when the city manager read it is that if we pass an ordinance to basically against marijuana, selling marijuana in the city, then it automatically goes on the ballot?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
It's just the same initiative and referendary procedures that exist now for each and every one of your ordinances that you pass or repeal.
So here's my concern, just so everybody knows. So right now we can legally smoke marijuana. We can legally have marijuana on us. If we don't have a facility where someone can get marijuana, but they legally can smoke it and legally can possess it, then where do they get it? Are they going to the drug dealers to get it? I guess that's just a question. So.
Good question. It's Commissioner Baker.
Again, I'm not trying to be misleading. I'm thinking, again, I'm a marketing major, and that's where my head goes. And I'm looking at this from a business perspective as well. And this is a huge opportunity, and will be one of the biggest industries eventually, if not already. So for us, I feel like moving forward as a city and moving towards the future and the way things are changing, we need to evolve with them instead of fighting it. And I agree, that's the same question, and that's why I think the drug dealing, those are our biggest issues. I feel like we're eliminating that and who knows, maybe we won't even get anybody in here to do this. But again, I think it's imperative to eliminate the drug dealer from that transaction of marijuana, because then it avoids the opportunity for somebody that just wants to smoke marijuana to get offered something that maybe they try just because they're getting peer pressured or whatever, and it results into other things.
I understand. Thank you. A couple of things. First of all, as was stated before, we can only opt out at a particular time according to our people that understand it and according to the information we got. If we can always opt back in if we are out. And I have some real concerns about the state of Michigan. Still, the medical marijuana, and again, I don't know if all of us, but many of us have no problem with medical marijuana. And I think that's it's needed by certain people, and it's under a doctor's stipulation type of thing. Possessing marijuana and having it in your home is one thing. You know, the labs, as I would see it, and the selling of it is a whole different ball game. And I would think that the state will not come up, from what we hear, with the rules to govern the overall language in the law in a timely manner. And if that's the case, then it falls to the local districts. And then it falls on our shoulders on what we allow and what we don't allow, and we're not in that business for the most part. And I would like to see the state be in that business. So we can always, in my mind, if the state comes up with the rules and it's something that the commission feels that is something that they can support, it's going to always come back. But I certainly at this time do not support the manufacturing of marijuana. And I also have attended every fan presentation that has been in the community, and a number of those people started on marijuana, and they said it's something that they are very concerned about. They spoke about maybe they've lost children. The black market's still going to be around. It's not going anywhere in my mind, and it'll only get more intense on getting children involved in the whole situation in my mind. And again, I've read the information. I just don't think that we as a community are ready to welcome open arms to a situation like that. Even though you can have in your home, there's other things that you can do to give it to a friend, as long as you don't sell it, I understand, as long as it's in your home, and you can be walking down the street as long as you're not smoking it. It's in your pocket. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that this new law allows. So that's where I'm at anyway. Commissioner Gary.
I was going to wait until Commissioner Miller's item, but...
Yeah, it sort of came
So-
but we still need it. We're going to still need
Yeah.
a motion or not a motion or whatever, so it's going to end up being.
And I think that you encapsulated a lot of the thought process. We as a community or city, we're not passing judgment on people's right to use it because we can't. This ordinance would be whether or not we are permitting the manufacture or the sale of it. And I think it was interesting. I got an opportunity to read Colorado, who's had legal marijuana for quite a while, just had to publish a report on the impacts of marijuana legalization in Colorado, and it was just published last month. And while there were some benefits to it, a lot of negatives. And it was interesting to me to see that in Colorado, 75% of all the communities opted out. And that's been in place for a long time. And I think it was also very interesting if you look at the medical marijuana law that we passed in Michigan, which has been, I think, fairly successful. Only 108 communities out of 1,700, which is 6%, opted in. So I think that you can see that there are a lot of communities that are questioning whether or not they should opt in, and certainly a lot of them are opting out. And I think I take the gentleman at the Michigan Municipal League training was very credible, and he's the attorney, their head attorney, I think. And he said what the mayor said, and I think what the city attorney said. We should, if we are thinking about it, we should opt out quickly. And we can always opt back in after the state has promulgated their law, their rules, and if we see that it's something we want to pursue. He said, if you opt in now, you can't opt out. Because people will come in, they'll buy facilities, they'll rely on the fact that we opted in, spend a lot of money, and then if we decide it's a mess, you know, we're going to be probably liable, I would think, and probably be in trouble. So I think from our perspective, I'm not saying that you know, I'm opposed to what happened. You know, it did pass in Chippewa County. It only passed by 2%, which is not an overwhelming majority, but it is a majority. But I think that we need to see what the state of Michigan will roll out. We want to see what other communities are going to do. We want to see what the impact is going to be on our police department, our fire department. There are so many unanswered questions, and I think we should opt out in pending that information. So I would be in favor of the opt-out as well.
Let's go to Commissioner Miller, and we'll come back to Commissioner Baker.
I just wanted to say a couple more things to Commissioner Baker. When you mentioned about being a business major or whatever, when the city manager was reading the new law, the first $20 million goes to the state of Michigan. We're not going to see any money right off the bat. But what about people who are caregivers for our cancer patients and glaucoma and whatever that are doing it legally, medical marijuana right now? Those people will be out of business. They're small business people, and they'll be, yeah, because you can get it anywhere then, yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Baker.
That's actually not 100% true. From the MML training, they're going to be eliminating the 10% tax on the medical marijuana, and then possibly they're talking about removing the sales tax on medical marijuana as well. So if you hold your medical marijuana card, you'll be getting an actual discount. So that's what's going to keep the medical places up and running. And go ahead.
No, well, I'm not getting discussions. Go ahead, sure.
All right. So I understand the concerns. However, I believe we as a commission can set policy and procedure in place to protect us from the issues that you've brought before it. I believe by opting out, we're saying no to business to a certain degree. We're not, Lake State, you know, you mentioned, Mayor, on how, I just think Lake State's opportunity to do what they could potentially do there would be huge, and tying that with support from the city and also possibly somebody that sells within the city or grows. Maybe it's not selling it. Maybe it's just a big grow house that they put their product somewhere else. I don't know what the answer is 100%, but I feel like waiting to see what everybody else is going to do is just, again, going to keep us with our pants down around our ankles, so to speak, and not be prepared. Now, as far as tax revenue, Commissioner Miller, again, you're right. We might not make a lot right away, but down the road, the potential is there, as well as if further down the road, we as a commission talk about as possible city income tax rolling out for the way things are changing within our economy here in our community. So for us to opt out, I think it's premature, and I think we have the potential to do right by it, and my opinion.
Okay, let's stop this part of it, and let's. Do you have anything else, Commissioner Baker, at this point? Okay, let's go to Commissioner Miller's item, which is item number 3. You want to, okay.
Under Communications, item 3 from Commissioner Miller, consideration of an ordinance prohibiting marijuana establishments.
Well, before I knew Commissioner Baker was going to have an agenda item on here too, I thought would be the discussion part of it, but I guess we've already had the discussion part of it. So
and there's been more.
In the interest of keeping it moving,
there can be more discussion. I mean, it's yeah.
I am looking at the draft ordinance that Mr. Canello wrote up. You said this was in October?
October 2nd.
I must have missed it.
It
was
hasn't been before the commission.
No, but I must have missed it on here because I think Mr. Turner said he had sent it to me, whatever. And
I think he sent it. I think he sent it around.
Okay.
By email quite a long time ago.
It's only one page, but for anybody who is at home and can't see it, it says pursuant to the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, Section 6.1, the city elects to prohibit marijuana establishments within its borders. This is the part I like. The ordinance shall be immediately effective as is necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety pursuant to City Charter 7.3. I like that, and I'd like to make a motion that we have the first reading of this.
Okay.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion. City Manager. Oh.
If I may ask the city attorney to clarify, this ordinance would have immediate effect and may not require 2 readings. If you could please speak to that.
If it attains 5 vote, can't say it, 5 vote majority. Otherwise, it'll go through a second reading at your next meeting and then 10-day publication. But all of that will be well within the time necessary to get this done.
Commissioner Gary.
I just wanted to go back to the former discussion because I think sometimes it's dangerous when we say things. Now, I don't know if you had, Commissioner Baker had spoken to anybody at Lake Superior, but I just wanted to state that marijuana is not legal on college campuses. Students at Michigan colleges and universities that receive federal funds are not allowed to possess or use cannabis on campus. And et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if the city attorney could tell us. I don't know if they even wanted to go into that type of a curriculum if they could. But it's not legal on college campuses in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
So to assert that they'd have it or have a program, I think is dangerous for us to, unless you've spoken to the administration.
Okay. Can you clarify your okay.
One, I'm just saying the potential, the opportunity for Lake State to develop a program such as Northern, who had over 200 people on their waiting list to get in, is there. Also, I think if we vote tonight on this without getting any kind of actual public comment, I think, again, would be a disservice for our voters who just went through an election and voted to make it legal, recreational.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller, do you have a comment?
Yes, again, they didn't vote to make it, they didn't vote to have it manufactured inside the city, recreational. I mean, and it's still recreational, it's legal, but we don't have to have this in the community. We're a quaint, nice little community. People come here in the summertime to see the locks and hunt and fish, and we don't need it here. It's not needed here.
Okay, thank you. Someone else. Commissioner Talentino, do you have a comment?
I guess I'll pipe in here. Seems like everybody else wants to. I've got one thing, I guess, to say in this whole situation, and to mirror a little bit off of what the mayor said regarding Families Against Narcotics. They're waist deep in this opioid crisis, okay? They adopted the same stance from the Michigan Association of Treatment Court Professionals, the Medical Society, police departments, sheriff's departments, and the Michigan State Police, and the Michigan Chamber of Commerce for no on rec marijuana. So, that being said, it's pretty hard for me to support FAN and say yes to something like this.
Commissioner Twardy.
Thank you. Yeah, I also am in support of FAN, and I read their stance, and I've been told by several of their members, and as a commissioner, I think it's really difficult if we were to choose to opt in. I don't think the state's not prepared. The state hasn't decided how it is that they even want to regulate this, what the ordinances are going to look like. And I think that it would not be very wise for us to jump ahead of the state. We are not prepared to over-regulate better than the state is able to regulate. And I think that we just need to sit back. I think we're safer to opt out at this point. And I think that we need to see what the state is going to say and how they're going to roll this out. I think that it moved along a little bit too quickly, and I do agree with Commissioner Miller that recreational marijuana and medicinal marijuana are also going to legal within our state. So that doesn't mean that manufacturing within our city limits should be. I'm in favor of opting out at this point. And as far as the state universities are concerned, the day after the election, my son, who also attends a state university, received an email from the communications director, and it was actually a pretty funny little email. But she did say, you know, before you decide to eat that next brownie, she said you need to understand that it is illegal on this campus, and we are a tobacco-free zone, and we will remain a tobacco-free zone even after the law comes into effect. So, so I just wanted to explain my point when I go to make my vote.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Collins?
I just want to say that from a business perspective, I understand where Commissioner Baker's coming from, especially from the standpoint of revenues for the city. But I also agree with Commissioner Gary and Commissioner Torty in reference to playing it safe and looking to see what happens with the state first. I don't think that we're prepared to regulate something that they can't regulate. So I guess where I'm at is I'm not necessarily against a facility coming in here and selling marijuana or manufacturing it. I just don't think that this is the time to go I guess forward with it. I'd much rather wait to see what the state does.
Okay. Commissioner,
that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker.
First off, I want to be clear that I'm a huge supporter of FAN, and I've spoken with many of their members regarding this issue. So again, I think it's going to be beneficial to the opiate crisis here in our community because it's going to eliminate the drug dealer, and it also has major benefits medically to help get opiate addicts off of opiates, number one. Number two, when we're talking about Lake State and the campuses and illegal marijuana smoking on campus, yes, but again, marijuana has evolved and has developed into oils, into treatment for cancer and epilepsy, and the opportunities that a college or university could have to give somebody an education on that is immense and life-changing from a medical perspective. So for us to, and the state does have a plan. The state does have a plan. They're gonna regulate it like alcohol. You're going to get a license. They're going to offer it. They medical growers will have the first pick, I guess, so to speak. If they apply, the state will take them. So they have a plan. This is, yes, there's kinks, there's legalities, you know, those, the gray areas there as far as being in court if you get pulled over for whatever. Again, the state has a plan. I think that they'll get it done within the year, especially with their experience through medical marijuana. And we as a city should not stand back to see what happens, and we should make our plan for zoning, signage, ordinances, so we are responsible and we have the opportunity to generate any kind of revenue that we could possibly get for it long term. Not short term, long term.
Okay, understand. Thank you. We have a motion and support? Okay.
Can I just get clarification on the motion? It's a motion to approve the presented ordinance to prohibit marijuana establishments in the city of Sault Ste. Marie.
That's your motion?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's the motion that, it's the draft ordinance that Mr. Canella made up in October.
Okay. Clarification on the ordinance?
We don't have to have a public hearing before?
Don't have to have a public hearing. We don't have to have a public hearing. Understand?
Well, it depends how many votes it gets.
Okay. And that was if 5 votes, you said?
5 votes can give it immediate effect.
Okay.
I may as well take this time to also say, to alert the clerk to 7.6 of the charter. If it does gain 5 votes for immediate effect, there are still publication, posting, and codification requirements as recited in the charter, and if necessary, I'll assist you as needed.
Okay, thank you. Everybody understand the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker?
No.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bospas?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, item G is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 1 under the city manager's report would provide for the award of a bid for portable radio upgrades for the fire department. On this matter, Chief Labonte will present to the city commission.
Okay. Evening, Chief.
Good evening once again. I'll try to make this as brief as I can.
That's okay.
For decades, the fire department has maintained its own repeated radio frequency and tower equipment, which is used both for fire and EMS dispatch and all fire department EMS operations. Although the state of Michigan's 800 megahertz band is used for hospital patient reporting from our more powerful ambulance radios and special events, the 800 megahertz radio system, which is what the police uses, is not sufficient for firefighting use just because we're in sub-level locations. And it just doesn't work out very well. So sticking with our proprietary VHF system is definitely the way to go. As you already know, clear and properly functioning communications are a hallmark for safe and effective operations both on the fire ground as well as EMS incidents. The 19 portable radios currently in use by the fire department have become obsolete after their 17 years of use. Replacement parts for the current Motorola HT750 portable radios are no longer available, making servicing the radios difficult and quite expensive. It's also been recently noted that many of our department radios are drifting off frequency. So instead of being 155.415, they're 155.417, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it cuts our distance by half or more, which obviously makes voice transmissions difficult to understand, especially in the outer parts of our response area. This cannot be repaired. It's just the way that the radios get after so much age. On November 9th, 2018, a bid opening was held for 19 new portable radios, remote microphones, chargers, and batteries, along with the programming and use software. The lowest bid meeting specifications was accepted from Grand Traverse Mobile in the amount of $15,170.58 with a battery upgrade. The price includes $1,425 in Kenwood rebates, as well as $1,200 for older radios being traded in. It's worth mentioning that this radio purchase is only one part of a two-part project, with SCBA communication units making up the second part, which that part could put this project a little bit over budget, but I'll have to see when that bidding process is over. It is calculated that the balance, though, can be funded from fire and EMS supplies. An additional grant opportunities become available also from TransCanada, the pipeline that runs from Canada through the U.S., which may cover up to $5,000 worth of these costs for the rest of the project. Like I said, more information will be known when the AMP bids are received. Also, innovations in portable radio technology have added multiple safety features. With the radio system we have now, it's just talking, which is great. Communications are wonderful. But with the updated radio systems that are in place, especially with the one I'm looking at tonight and presenting to you on the Kenwood system, it has a man-down feature, which means if the radio if the radio signifies within its programming that it falls, or it's horizontal for 30 seconds, it sends out a tone to everybody who's on the fire scene, alerting us that a specific person is down. It'll even give the person's name and their coordinates. So either central dispatch or another computer could say, this is exactly where this person is, which is phenomenal. Finally, it should be noted that a port security grant was applied for to fully fund this project, which included the purchase of 19 portable radios as well as 8 SCBA communications devices. Despite efforts to win the port security grant, it was not funded in any part, with much of the funding going to projects in Detroit in that area. The only motion needed to purchase the radios would be a motion to award the bid to Grand Traverse Mobile Communications in the amount of $15,814.58 for 19 portable radios and associated equipment, and to apply $1,425 in rebates back to the fire and ambulance portable radio budget when the rebates are received later on.
Thank you. City Manager, anything additionally?
Nothing further. Appreciate the presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Collins. Question.
Yeah, the question I have is, the Kenwood is the only bid that we received, the rest were all Motorola?
Correct.
Is the Kenwood what you want?
Or
is the Motorola better?
Well, let me put it this way. When we went out to ask to demo these radios, Kenwood was the only one that would let us demo a radio, which we did use for about a month and found it really well. I've gone out in several chiefs forums, to see what everybody liked, and it was about 50-50, between Kenwood and Motorola. So when the bidding process began, I was happy with either result, either Motorola or Kenwood.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Torty.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you have your last set of radios for 17 years, these are actually a pretty good investment. It either goes back to the department really taking care of their assets and making sure that you're managing them well and keeping them up, or it goes back to the quality of the product, and it's probably a combination of both. But in my mind, I mean, $15,000 for hopefully another 17, maybe 20 years is a really good investment when we're talking about the lives of people who are out there protecting us. So.
Absolutely. Good point. Yeah. Commissioner Talentino.
I'd like to make a motion. Excuse me, a motion to award the bid to Grand Traverse Mobile Communication in the amount of $15,814.58 for 19 portable radios and associated equipment, and apply $1,425 in rebates back to the Fire and Ambulance Patrol radio budget when they are received.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you for the presentation, Scott.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bospis?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 2, under the city manager's report, pertains to the operational budget review and an authorization for budget revisions for the current fiscal year. As commissioners are aware, included within the packet is the finance director's review of budget to actual performance for the city's operating funds. As commissioners are also aware, this report is presented 3 times per year in September and December, and then once more in June, with best estimates of where the city will be at the close of the fiscal year. The review is for operational budgets only, with status reports and budget requests for capital projects coming to the city commission from project managers through the city manager. Significant highlights of the current review include an increase in the tax refunds line item in the amount of $68,300 to reflect an expected and negotiated Michigan Tax Tribunal refund to Cascade Crossings, partially offset by remaining funds in the contingency fund. An increase in both revenues and expenditures in the amount of $184,200 for the dial-a-ride services, representing no net increase or decrease for this function serving as a pass-through. An adjustment of $1,900 to reflect expenditures for the industrial park expenses resting with the Economic Development Corporation. An increase in the amount of $65,700 to be abated in part for increased workers' compensation premiums, with that amount to be revisited after the 6-month mark, with a net negative anticipated for the general fund of $51,300, primarily as anticipated from the settlement with Cascade Crossings. Further, the review includes adjustments to the LDFA fund to reflect the settlement with Cascade Crossings and the receipt of an additional $15,000 from the Tax Increment Finance Authority, District 3, to support LDFA functions as permitted by the provisions of the TIFA 3 plan. And finally, there are no recommended budget revisions to the Water and Sewer Fund, but it should be noted that currently the fiscal year is on track for consumption to be 3 to 4% lower overall. The budget review in front of the City Commission is within the expectations for funds. There are certainly areas that will continue to be monitored, including the general fund and the water and sewer fund, and other review items will be forthcoming after the 6-month mark, with the budget development cycle upcoming in the very near future. Accordingly, it's my recommendation that the City Commission authorize the final revisions as indicated within the packet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gary.
I make a motion to authorize the final budget revisions for the 2019 fiscal year as indicated in the packet.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty,
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
That concludes the City Manager's report. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Item number H, status reports.
There are no items on the published agenda with status reports.
Okay, thank you. Item I, matters presented by the public. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to make a comment at this time? Hearing none, we'll go to the items presented by the City Commission. Just a quick reminder that this Friday is the DDA's Parker Hardware Christmas Parade of Lights. Santa Claus is coming to town for all the children. 7 o'clock start on Ann Street. Lineup is behind Parker Hardware. And again, I'd like to thank Parker Hardware for the continued support of the Christmas parade, and they do such a great job, and certainly the DDA in putting that together. I know that I saw the ad in or the article in the paper today about floats, and they're encouraging folks to get involved and be part of the parade. So hopefully everyone takes advantage of that. But should be a beautiful night on Friday night, the day after Thanksgiving, and with that, certainly like to wish everyone from the Commission, on behalf of the Commission and the City Administration and staff, happy Thanksgiving, and we're all in the snow, so, and I understand a lot of deer camps have been fairly successful this year. We've seen some pretty good pictures of deer taken. Congratulations to Commissioner Talentino. He's got one that's going to cost him a few dollars because I think he said it's what, a 10-point? Beautiful, beautiful deer, and he'll be mounting that, so good luck with that. And anyone else? Commissioner Talentino.
Just got one quick thing. A couple weeks ago, we all remember we voted on the diesel fume filters for the fire department.
Yeah.
Well, last week I stopped down there while the company was installing them just to check it out. Very good system, really neat, super simple. Chief, good job on that. So I just want everybody to know I checked it out. It was a really, really neat deal.
Excellent.